Hey, Drew.
Hello, hello.
Okay, Drew. So you've started a 1-year engagement, fractional CMO. Today's day 1. What's the first thing you're going to want to tackle, or the first thing you go looking for, and let everyone know who you are?
Sure, yeah. My name is Drew Friesen. I'm a fractional CMO. I work specifically or usually with agricultural and industrial manufacturing. And I work to make sure that you have a marketing plan that's truly effective for what you're trying to accomplish with your business, and then run it with you till you don't need me anymore. And that's really what I do. In terms of the question, man, there's a lot of directions you can take a business, but before you take them any direction, you got to find alignment. So often the first step is making sure that before you start the external marketing, you're doing some internal marketing and a lot of listening and alignment with the team, right? So the first steps often are understanding where the business is trying to go, asking the hard questions. Sometimes these documents already exist, and there's a business strategy that's really realized, and they have a plan of what they want to accomplish this year with targets and activities that they have kind of committed to. And sometimes none of that exists, and you have to pull that out before you can even really get to what marketing should be doing. But marketing really isn't its own thing in its own kind of in a vacuum state where it's on its own island having fun, and the rest of the business also exists. It's all one big thing, and marketing's role often is just to make sales more efficient, more effective, to be known, liked, and preferred by your ideal audience. And so I like to start by just taking a step back and understanding where the business is headed, and make sure that we all agree as a team where we're going. We're all excited about it. Understand the role that each department has to play, including marketing, and then we can start rolling out a plan.
All right, good. And Alon, hi. Welcome back.
Hello.
Welcome back to both of you. Welcome back.
Yeah,
This is the first episode that we've ever had just 2 people who are also on another season. So that's fantastic. Shows how established I am in the podcasting community, in which I have no establishment whatsoever. So, that and $5 will get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? Alon, what do you see? What's sort of the first thing you try to tackle, or the first problem you go looking for when you start a new engagement? And remind folks about the great Alon.
Thank you. I've been doing part-time, now it's called fractional CMO work for many years. And basically what I do is I come into typically the spaces are customer experience, MarTech, and sales tech. That's the ones I like the most and seem to know things about. I come in for a short stint, usually up to a year, to build the motion and define the entire function, and then find my successor and move on and stay as an advisor. And the first thing is truly really understanding, aligned to what you said, the success criteria. What are we trying to achieve? But that should be the beginning of my retainer, not part of it. And then it's really about focus, which means that usually when I'm asked to come in, it's the company's trying to either to move up market or trying to move from a very scattered one to many to a more defined up market or one to few motion. We can talk more about that later. And the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of things happening, a lot. We're doing so much. And focus, understanding who the audience is, product marketing 101, ICP has to be the beginning. And then you build the motions of marketing to fit that. So that's usually where we start.
Right. All right. So, Alon, stay with me for a second then. Let's switch from sort of the fractional CMO's view coming in to the CEO. Okay. So I'm the CEO, the board, the ELT, me, just on my own, whatever, decided to invest in a 1-year engagement, let's say, for a fractional CMO, right? Like, how do I get the maximum value from that 1-year engagement? Or how do I avoid wasting my money?
Yeah. So this goes back to the original premise of why to hire somebody who's called a fractional versus a full-time hire for long-term, right? So true, again, what I see, the word fractional, again, I don't like it, but again, if you're hiring a part-time interim leader, there must be something more to gain versus somebody who you're going to hire for a longer term. So number one thing is the value you're going to get is, of course, leapfrogging the marketing function versus taking 6 months, 9 months to hire a VP marketing or whatever you're looking for, getting them settled in. So you want to get there quicker, faster, and this person, the fractional, will jump in much quicker because we know how to do that if we're experienced and have the background that we have. That's one. Second, that's the obvious. Otherwise, why would you hire us? Second is you're actually enabling your company to understand what kind of marketing team, function, and leader you really need. Because respectfully, a lot of times when you're talking about smaller companies, I'm not talking about public companies or companies that are the 300, 200, more than that, you're not sure what kind of CMO you need. Or if you need a dimension focused VP market, and you might not have had a CMO before. This enables you to really learn and work with this person for their guidance on what kind of marketing leader would best fit you, your CRO, your board, and so forth. Okay, so that's the second. It's a very big value prop, I believe, for the CEO to not waste time on finding the wrong or not finding the right person. Two different things that can be right. Okay, i.e. not finding it all. The third is if you're hiring a part-time fractional person, usually they're more expensive than you would pay for full-timer, okay, per day or whatever retailer you do.
Mm-hmm.
Get insight into what's around the corner. Get insight and be a partner. Have somebody who's a real advisor to you that is about what is full funnel, what is about different strategies on marketing and sales alignment, what are the things that you should be doing. Partner marketing should happen later or now. So not just running the ship of today's focus and next quarter focus, but rather about longer term partnerships on advising you, kind of like a board. You're getting a free board advisor with that package. So look at it that way. So that's what I would think about.
Yeah. And Drew, how about you? How do you think that the company or the CEOs gets maximum value for that 1 year of CMO? Or how do they waste the money?
Yeah, we could take a look at the flip side if that's maybe a more visceral way of showing it. But I really like Alon's answer here. I think that often one of the better reasons to hire a fractional is the quick start ability that a fractional CMO has. It's almost a different skill set, right? It's not just someone who understands how to lead a marketing department and how to make sure that integrates well with sales and the rest of the business. Is a fractional CMO, part of their skill set is knowing how to start really quickly and to get moving really quickly and how to ask the right questions and not get, I mean, that's part of the skill set, but also part of the logistics of it, of not having to worry about what kind of package you're creating and stuff for a full-time employee and everything that goes into hiring a full-time employee.
Right.
The fractional quick start, I think, is definitely worth considering as part of the value there. But the question really is, how do you suck the marrow out of it? And I really think that comes down to making sure that you're really bringing them in, which I think Ellen alluded to here. Is like they really have to be in your team. They have to be meeting with you. You have to have strong integration. You have to understand what each other are trying to accomplish. You need to agree on where you're going. And then you need to allow them to actually make changes, right? Depending on the size and sophistication of the team, you may already have processes in place and marketing activities planned, and you have a bit of infrastructure built out in your marketing department, and you have to be okay to really mess it up a little bit and let them be a catalyst for change. Because if you don't let them in, even if that feels scary to do, I mean, you're bringing them in to give you the truth and reality, right? But if you don't allow them to make large changes, then, why are you hiring someone in that position? So I think a way it can go wrong is if you don't give them the space to make the changes that they need to make, right? To allow you to, or for them to help you roll out a more sophisticated marketing practice.
Right. Okay, let's talk about, let's switch from fractional CMO to CEO to now the marketing team that's in place. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, especially if you don't just focus on, early startups, there's already someone who works like in marketing, right? Probably a junior or a mid-level person, right? So, Drew, you're going to walk into this scenario where there's already one or more junior or mid-level marketing people, staffers in place, or you're like offering advice to a friend who's about to do that. Like, what are you telling them like they should do first, or what are you telling them? Whatever you do, don't do this first.
Are you, so specifically the person that we're taking the point of view is it the marketing team member in-house as the fractionals coming in?
We're actually going to get to them, but like it's you or a friend who's a fractional CMO, and you're about to move into like a team that's already in place. So you're the new person and a fractional person at that, right? Like, how do you approach that team? Like, what are your first steps to make sure that it's going to be a good relationship?
Yeah. Don't assume you know what you're talking about. Just because you have good marketing best practices, maybe you're really rehearsed in that quick start ability like we were talking about from being fractional. Maybe you know a lot about the industry or how to create really effective marketing. You don't know the business. You don't know what they're currently doing. You don't know why they're currently doing the things that they are. You don't know the history, is performance or historic data on what
Right.
they have done and how it's impacted the business. So I think the first step, it's a blessing and a curse when you're coming in as a fresh person, is you don't know anything, and so you have to
Right.
come in and ask a lot of questions and do a lot of listening. And some of that can look ignorant or whatever, but also that leads to the stupid questions being asked, which can often be a good thing. And the questions that maybe just haven't been asked because they're assumed or obvious, right? And now you're asking those questions, and it leads you down a route with the team that allows you to kind of take it somewhere different, or look at a problem and say, it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe we can make a change. Maybe we can do this differently than we've been doing it in the past. So I think if I was speaking to someone and advising them what would be the first couple steps coming in or what to think about, I would make sure that they don't have to come in with all the answers.
Right.
The most important thing is just to come meet the team, meet as many of them as possible, depending on the size and sophistication of their marketing team, and listen, ask great questions, understand what they're currently doing and why they're doing that. Questions I love to ask are, you're doing this thing. Why did you choose to do this? Why do you think, or does it, do you not think it connects well with the vision of where the business is trying to go? And then how do you measure whether that's the case? So you did the thing. How do you look back at it in a couple months or whatever the time frame makes sense, and say, did it work? Did it not work? How are we going to create a feedback loop so that we're analyzing it and doubling down if it was awesome, or course correcting if it wasn't, right? And so those questions I try to ask everyone with a neutral point of view, and then we go from there.
And Alon, what do you think? Like, if you were going to advise someone, a peer who's walking into a situation, so it's my first ever time where there's been a team in place. I normally do like tiny startups. I'm usually the person that has to build the infrastructure and hire people. I don't like come into an organization. I'm not a fractional CMO, so I've literally never had this. Right? It's like, what would you advise them to do, or what advise them to avoid as they have to now interact with a team?
So this question, you can take the word fractional out of it. If you're coming in as a VP marketing or as a CMO to manage a team, it doesn't matter if you're coming there for 6 months or for 3 years, it doesn't really matter. You're coming in as a leader. If you're a junior marketing leader, have never managed a team, you need to learn to manage a team and to gain their trust and understand how to present data, how to coach, guide them. I don't think this is relevant to fractional. No, the only two things that are more relevant specifically to fractional are, A, is how you manage time on team management versus actually doing the things you came in to do because you're not full-time. And that's very important as you mature and understand you're not going to be the all day to all day hand, but rather you're going to use sprints of time to teach, guide, and work on things that will elevate the company, but not sit with them 7 hours afterwards and then look at them doing the work. Like you got to manage your time better than a full-time person.
Right.
So that's the different one, and that has to do also a lot to do with people management, hierarchies, reporting structure. You got to be very smart about org design that enables execution and enables facilitation of ideation and creativity versus just managing everybody as a flat organization, which is not really efficient always, but much more as a fractional. So that's the first.
Right.
I think the second one is, this is a conundrum of, wait, are you our manager? Are you here just for 6 months? I used to report to a founder. Why do I need this person coming in? They're not going to be here a year from now. That's if you're coming in as a part-time person and interim time person, you will face that, especially the more legacy people in the company that have been there from the beginning and they know everything. But you got to be strong and aligned very much about the success definite criteria, which you defined in the beginning of this interview, which is, why am I here? There's a reason you guys asked me, or your board asked me, or VC or your CEO asked me to come here and guide you guys. So I'm here you got to convey that to the team as somebody coming in, is earn their trust and gain it by showing, I'm giving you frameworks, I'm showing you how it's done, here's it's done before. But at the end of the day, you're the manager. You're the manager of the function. Right. You have accountability and responsibility. I don't care if you have a fractional or part-time or whatever added to your title. Like, that's your job. If I'm talking about this scenario, and in that job, this is the team that you are leading, and that's just one-on-one leadership management. Doesn't matter if you're fractional or not. but you got to gain their trust, earn it, and then work with them together. But you have to make tough decisions as well.
All right, so Alon, let's kind of stay with that for a second, but shift, and we're going to be a different person, right? Now we're that junior person on the marketing team, okay? And we just found out that a fractional CMO is going to be with the company for a year. People, and so you Google what fractional CMO is because you've never heard this term. And then from that person's perspective, like walking in on the first Monday morning, right? Like how, as a junior marketer, do I take advantage of this 1 year, a fractional CMO, existence that I have? Right? What should I be asking that person? What should I try to learn from that person? What should I not try to do anymore?
So again, let's divide it by there's a CMO coming in, or there's a fractional CMO coming in. I'm going to stick on that point. The difference is you probably going to get less hand-holding time from a fractional person because they're not coming here to just hold your hand for 50 hours a week.
They're there for leadership more than management. Yeah.
Leadership, management plan, and functional ownership. Yeah. So the recommendation I have is two things. I'll start with two, and I'm sure Drew can add to that. One, if you're a junior person or an individual contributor, or even a director reporting to this person, understand that this person is not there just to manage you. Managing is part of what they have to do, but they're there to drive the company forward. Okay. And they are very experienced, or hopefully very experienced, and have done this a few times. So they're on your side. They're not there to make their name, their brand, say everything sucks and I can have to rebuild and it will take me 3 years. Like, no, they are there for the company. A fractional CMO is supposed to have very little ego compared to a full-time employee that it has politics as part of what they have to do, unfortunately. And it hurts us sometimes, but that's the truth. Okay, so you have somebody that's actually going to be maybe more candid, maybe more focused, maybe have a bit less time, really going to do the things they believe are going to drive the success criteria of the company forward. So learn, enjoy that. Secondly, you're getting probably a person that's more experienced than a regular VP marketing full-time at your stage, especially if you're your own company. Use this person as a guidance about your career, about where can I go next? What would you recommend for me to learn? Should I join a forum, a group? Who do I learn from? Brands I should follow? So see this as an opportunity for somebody who doesn't have tons of time to hold your hand, but when they do, can give you true experience guidance about you, your career, and how to elevate your game. So those are the two things I would recommend to think about.
And Drew, how about you? Like, how would you? I mean, anyone who's ever had kids once in a while has the thought, they don't actually ask me about X and Y, but like I know a lot about that, and they should know it, but I can't force them. Right? For those junior marketers, like what one or two things could they do, or at least avoid, to make sure that this next year is everything it can be for them?
Yeah, well, my 10-month-old isn't quite asking me questions like that yet, but I'm sure.
Well, if you're going to flip it, another way to say that is, in the last 10 months, your child has asked you nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, I think like Alon was saying, there's a couple ways you could take it. I think for the junior, you have this experienced team member coming in that maybe is above the level of leadership you would have brought in if they were coming in full time. You have a fractional member and you're getting more experience or more skill, hopefully, out of what you would have gotten otherwise. So lean on that. Ask them. A fractional CMO has this added benefit of they've worked with such a diversity of companies and seen a diversity of problems. And so if there's questions that they have around their own individual careers or how they're doing their current roles, I think it's a really great opportunity to kind of level up as an individual. I think really great questions to ask that I've gotten, that I've loved, have been, how do I think more like whatever role is above them? Or how do I make sure that your job is easier? They're starting to think about the things that would matter if they, were a manager or a director or a VP in that role. So I think those are really quite good questions to ask. But also, I think the important thing is also to realize that the fractional coming in is not there to point and say how bad the company is. The fractional there is to be a catalyst of change. And sometimes, and I think actually think it's often the case, the team has really good ideas. The team has really good ideas. They just don't know how to either execute them, or there's internal blockers or internal politics that prevent them from taking action on those ideas. So often it's kind of dispelling the myth that they're there to make your team look bad and build the department or the strategy that is going to make that fractional look really good. Often the fractionals coming in to make the team look better and maybe stand behind them and support them in the ideas that they had and say, hey, these guys have been trying to do this forever, but it keeps getting blocked before we hit the big green go live button. Let's support them. Your team has great ideas. So I think sometimes the biggest blocker when I'm coming into a new fractional situation is the current VP of marketing or the current marketing lead, because they think it's going to be this experience where they get outed for their dirty laundry and what they've brushed under the rug. But often what helps them puts them at ease rather is meeting with them and talking to them and realizing that I'm actually here to support you. I'm here to make sure that eventually I won't be here anymore, and the keys will be handed over to you or whatever that team will look like at that point. And the goal is that you guys you got it from here. Now, go be rock stars, and you're going to own the show. And a lot of the things that you change in month 1 through 12, you're only going to see true dividends, in the years afterwards. So you will take the credit at that point. So use me, exploit me while I'm here. Ask a lot of good questions. And, bring up those ideas that have been batted out of the sky numerous times, and maybe we can make them work. Maybe they fit really well with the vision we have, and you can use the fact that I'm coming in and stirring up the waters here to really execute something that you've been wanting to do forever. So I think there's the learning from the individual, but also using this experience to really to grow as a team and try some of those things that you couldn't previously.
Okay, so Drew, we've got time for one more question. So approach it this way. Let's go way back up to the top of the company, okay? And some number of people were involved in a decision to shell out money for a year of a fractional CMO. In your experience, do those companies tend to look at that 1 year as a sprint, or is it year 1 of a marathon for fractional CMOs?
Oh, it depends. I think it depends on where the company is in terms of their life cycle. Like, are they a startup? Are they growing? Are they a scale up? Where they are in terms of their goals and sophistication kind of changes how long that time period is that they'll need fractional work. Because there'll be a time, and it will come for most growing companies. They're in good fortune and they do well and they have great product market fit and vision, that they will probably need and desire a full-time member. So whether that's a year later or that's many, many years later, depending on how fast this company is growing, that will change. In terms of, is this a sprint or not? I think that there's parts of hiring a fractional that should feel like a sprint. You're bringing them on to make change, and a fractional is supposed to be really good at that quick change. And so seeing a quick, short turnaround in fixing sales experience friction, fixing the short-term marketing plays, fixing the structuring of how do we measure things and collect data and our processes in-house, standard operating procedures. I think there's a lot of that can be very sprint. But also, I think, as we know on this call, is that marketing is a very long game. So a lot of things that you're setting up, you're not going to be measuring, at least in their full realized value, in the first year. You're going to be maybe sowing some seeds that you're going to see, really grow in year 2 or 3, right? If we're talking about a lot of the longer term marketing strategy and the activities that you put towards it. So I think there's parts of it that need to be a sprint. I think there's lots of it that you can get done as a sprint in the short term, but marketing is this mixed portfolio, right, of short term and long term activities. And I think the most important thing is to be in alignment and agree on where you're at and what goals you have, and how many of them should be these short term ones, these short term activities and results, and how many of them should be long term, and how we're going to measure them and look at them differently, and just make sure that everyone's on the same page for that, so that it's not just we're focusing only on the short term and then the fractional CMO is gone and now we have to do a new short term play for year 2. That there's a blend of some things that we're looking at for the long term and some things for the short.
Alon, kind of, what's your preference? Do you have a preference on whether you sort of do like a year and then move on, or else you'd want to stay with the same company for like years and years in a marathon kind of mode?
Yeah, I'll answer that, and then I'll come back to marathon versus sprint, the debacle. So my typical engagement would be, I'm coming in for a year as your CMO with the goal of exiting that year with the structure, the foundation, the success that we've defined being on the way, like already planned, everything we defined as, and my replacement. And then I go on to be an advisor for a specific amount of time. Doesn't have to be for a long time because my job is done, and I can be an advisor to the board, to the leadership team, and so forth. That's my typical engagement. No purpose in becoming the CMO. It's only a part-time change agent.
Right.
Now, the marathon versus sprint. Well, first of all, when you're hiring a marketing leader, it has to be a sprint because otherwise you're not going to show success and you're not going to earn that seat at the table because the company probably has a gap, especially if it's a part-time. The urgency factor is extreme because they need fixing.
Right.
Otherwise, why would I come in? If you just need strategy and advisory, you don't need me to manage the function. I can come in as an advisor and help you. But if I'm coming in as truly the person owning the function, then there's probably a high likelihood of something's broken, or we're not seeing the results, or we don't know what the results are, or we're spending too much. So the sprint has to happen, guys. You got to earn that and do that quick. Now, after the sprint, the first sprint, where you're starting to show hopefully effective scale, which is part of the goal, building that machine, a demand machine, or whatever you want to call it. Then the question is there another sprint? Probably not. That's your job to teach them that. Now it's the beginning of the marathon after we've built the baseline. Okay. This marathon now is about, okay, now we need to understand. Are we doing a brand, a market awareness play? Are we doing a community play? Are we doing a partnership play? What is going to get us to get this demand machine that we've built to really scale? And it's not paid inbound.
Right.
To that next phase, which is truly about awareness, community, ecosystem, partnership, brand, like, you know what I mean? Those things that should really move the needle in order to scale in an effective manner, the 10x factor. And that's not growth. It's more than growth. That has to be a marathon. I challenge anybody who does it in a sprint, because you can't build brand and market awareness in a sprint. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Okay. So my answer again would be the demand side, fixing side, foundation, success definition, and seeing that in a data-driven way has to be sprint or sprint phases, but the rest has to be a marathon that hopefully starts a little bit after the first sprint, but it runs in parallel to the sprints.
Yeah. Sounds like the difference between getting the plane off the ground and then maintaining cruising altitude once you're up there, right? Okay, so Alon, who should be contacting you these days, and how should they get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, probably the best way to reach me. I'm
Yeah.
not very active there, but I do go on it. Who should be, if you want to spend 30 minutes of listening to me give you ideas that you don't like, or being very extremely candid about what I think the right way should be, because that's who I am, that's my nature, fortunately or unfortunately, then just ping me. If you're a founder, VC, board member, or just somebody who really is looking for ideas about how to change their business, I'm happy to spend some. So looking forward to it.
All right. And Drew, who should contact you, and how should they do it?
Yeah, sure. I'm moderately more active on LinkedIn than Alon. I don't post every day, but I am there and I'm engaging. So yeah, come check me out there. Send me a direct message. Yeah, if you want to talk through what you're doing this year, what you're excited about, what you're not, if you're scared or unsure about how to measure what you're doing, or whether you're barking up the right tree with what you're trying to accomplish with marketing, whether it's truly aligned with where you want your business to go, let's jump on a chat, 15-30 minute call and see if we're a good fit for what we're trying to accomplish. I mostly work with businesses within manufacturing, industrial, but I've worked with businesses from all over. And if you want to chat, I'm game.
All right, guys, thanks so much, A, for being here, and B, for being here again, since this is the only time we've ever had an episode with two people who used to be here before. It's kind of a coincidence, but it's kind of great. So thanks, Alon. Thanks, Drew. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the